In the heart of rural Illinois, where cornfields stretch endlessly and everyone knows your name, one woman kept a secret so chilling, it would make the entire country shiver. For months, a retired police chief, beloved, respected, and trusted, was missing. No goodbyes, no answers, just gone. Then came a smell that forced open a door and revealed a plastic storage container that held not just a decomposed body, but the unraveling of a monstrous truth. What happens when the person meant to protect the community is silenced by someone he trusted? What happens when your neighbor is hiding a body? This is the story of Marcy Oglesby and the horrifying murder of retired police chief Richard "Rick" Young, a case of poison, deception, and the ultimate betrayal, hiding in plain sight.
Welcome to Crime Bite.
In this channel, we peel back the layers of those hidden realities, raw evidence, conflicting testimonies, and emotional pleas for help that too often come too late. By looking into these crime bites, you'll see firsthand how broken trust, systemic oversights, and chilling motives can converge into stories that rattle us to the core. If you find this exploration as vital as we do, be sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notifications button. Together, we can shine a light on the cases that demand attention, ensuring every voice, especially the silenced, finds the audience it deserves. Maquon, Illinois wasn't the kind of place people read about in true crime headlines. It was the kind of town where porch lights doubled as welcome signs, where people still left their keys in their ignitions, and where everyone knew who baked the best cherry pie at the church social. The community wasn't just close-knit, it was sewn together by decades of shared memories, small-town traditions, and mutual trust. Richard "Rick" Young had been one of the pillars of that community. A retired police chief, Rick had spent his career standing between his town and the worst it could become. He was respected, admired, even beloved. After retiring from a long career in law enforcement, Rick didn't disappear into obscurity. He became the friendly face that fixed your leaky faucet, the calm voice that helped with neighborhood disputes, the quiet guardian still watching over Maquon. Rick's days were slow, predictable, and comforting. Mornings spent in his garage tinkering with shortwave radios, afternoons fixing broken porch steps for an elderly neighbor, evenings chatting with old friends over coffee at the town diner. He had no known enemies, no debts, and no reason to leave without a word. So when October 2022 arrived and Rick seemed to vanish into thin air, the town felt something break. It began with missed check-ins. No one had seen him in days. Calls to his phone went straight to voicemail. Neighbors knocked, but there was no answer. His tools sat untouched in the garage. His coffee mug was still in the sink. His absence felt sudden and unnatural, like a puzzle piece ripped from a nearly complete picture. The town responded in a way only small towns can, with collective action. Flyers were printed and posted on light poles, gas station windows, and community bulletin boards. Volunteers canvassed nearby woods. Local farmers searched their fields. People whispered, theorized, and prayed. Some believed Rick had a medical emergency and wandered off. Others thought maybe, just maybe, he had gone away to start anew, tired of the burden of being everyone's rock. But the ones who knew Rick best, the ones who had shared decades of quiet mornings and honest handshakes, knew something wasn't right. Rick wouldn't have left without saying goodbye. He wouldn't have broken the unwritten contract of Maquon's trust. Then came the smell, when the very person who once upheld justice becomes the missing piece of the puzzle. Who is left to fight for the truth? To most of Maquon, Marcy Oglesby was just another face in the crowd. She didn't stand out. She didn't cause problems. In a town where people's lives were often open books, Marcy kept hers shut tight. She lived a private life on the fringe of town and rarely engaged with others unless necessary. Some people said she was awkward, others said eccentric, but no one ever accused her of being dangerous. Marcy and Rick had a connection, one shrouded in questions and conflicting accounts. Some neighbors believed Rick had moved in with her for a time, perhaps to help her financially or out of a sense of duty. Others whispered about tension behind closed doors, arguing, slammed doors, late-night calls. Still, Rick never gave any indication that he felt threatened or unsafe. And no one could have imagined Marcy, quiet, reserved Marcy, as capable of violence. But then the odor began to creep from a rented storage unit she held across the street from her home. At first, people thought it was just trash. Maquon wasn't a place where people expected the worst. But as the days passed, the stench grew unbearable, sickly sweet, putrid, unmistakable. The storage facility manager made a call to law enforcement, citing the unbearable smell and Marcy's sudden erratic behavior. When police arrived and pried open the metal door of unit number 119, they weren't prepared for what they'd find. Inside, under piles of debris, boxes, and furniture, sat a plastic container, taped shut, duct taped multiple times over. On top, items had been strategically placed, old tools, holiday decorations, books, all to create the illusion of a cluttered, forgotten space. But the smell gave it away. So did the flies. Officers, suspecting the worst, cut through the layers. What they uncovered was the remains of a human body, badly decomposed, wrapped in materials that only delayed the inevitable discovery. A retired police chief had been hidden, discarded, in a box like a forgotten possession. And Marcy? She offered no resistance, no tears, no confusion, just silence, cold, silent. Comment your thoughts. When the person next door becomes a suspect, how do we reconcile the face we thought we knew with the darkness they tried to hide? Like this video, subscribe, and click the bell for more true crime stories that give voice to the voiceless. It started with a smell, stale, sickly sweet. A smell that no one expected from a storage unit filled supposedly with rusty tools and cardboard boxes. Day after day, facility staff complained. They filed reports. They tried to ignore it. But eventually, they called the sheriff. Deputies arrived in glossy squad cars, stepped into the corridor, and immediately froze. The odor soaked through their senses. Flashlights revealed torn boxes, damp fabric, and something wet. Crackling sounds came from inside when they forced the door open. Their flashlights hit, nothing living, but the floors were slick. The smell grew stronger, and there, beneath a clutter of litter and debris, was a body. Inside a cardboard box, buried under cat litter, decomposing in silence. That corpse, later identified through DNA, would change everything. It was Rick Young. His body had been hidden in plain sight, yet unseen for months. When a death is concealed so meticulously, what else was being hidden? At the crime scene, investigators found nothing that screamed homicide. No stab wounds, no bullet casings, fingerprint residue, barely. Only the smell, the body, and the faintest trace of something sinister. But then a piece of paper, a receipt for a bulk purchase of eye drops. Pink caps, tetrahydrozoline. Doctors recognize it as emergency use enlargement drops, but in large doses, deadly. Crime lab experts ran toxicology on the body. The results hit like a freight train. High levels of tetrahydrozoline. A slow poison that creeps into the bloodstream and attacks the heart. Death could have come over weeks or months. They poured through phone bills, receipts, credit card transactions, and found Marcy had made repeated purchases of those same eye drop bottles. In receipts, in surveillance footage from pharmacy parking lots, in her trash. Every timeline pointed to slow, intentional poisoning. Share your opinions in the comments section. How long does it take to kill someone when the clues aren't screams but pharmacy invoices? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click notifications button for more gripping stories. Even the most painstaking forensic work sometimes needs a witness. In this case, that witness was Marcy's godmother, 79-year-old Karen Dubett. Karen had been a quiet pillar in the community. But in front of jurors, she described what she couldn't keep hidden any longer. She said she'd been there, at the bedside. She watched Marcy administer eye drops, thin and trembling, into Rick's coffee, his morning tea, a methodical deposit masked by tea, hidden by love. She said Marcy was afraid but determined, afraid of Rick leaving her, afraid of losing everything. Karen helped her move the body into the unit, cleaned the carpet, placed the clay litter. She had lied because of love, blinded protective love. But now she stood under oath. Her testimony hung in the room like a guillotine. Digital receipt after receipt, surveillance image after image. It tied the poisoning, the death, and the concealment to Marcy in brutal clarity. When love protects crime, who protects innocence? Detectives turned Marcy's life inside out. They mapped her every move, each pharmacy visit for tetrahydrozoline, each tip from the godmother, and each shadowed moment in Rick's presence. They interviewed neighbors, colleagues, extended family. No one expected the retired police chief to be targeted from within. A chilling pattern emerged. small, lukewarm sips of coffee, the gradual toll of poison flooding Rick's system. By the time he collapsed in late October 2021, the signs were buried beneath months of decay in a single-body box. The fraud of his quiet disappearance unraveled into a carefully orchestrated killing. Prosecutors presented the timeline in chilling detail: receipts, timestamps, and the minutes between a poison-laced mug and Rick's collapse. Forensic toxicologists pointed to the tetrahydrozoline's physiological havoc. Investigators laid it all bare, and Marcy's denial began to crumble. When evidence piles like stones on a scale, can even the darkest denials keep a killer balanced? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click notifications button for more gripping stories. On October 7, 2022, Marcy was arrested in her home, her calm unbroken. Officers watched as she led them to the storage unit across the street, still filled with Rick's remains beneath layers of dust and litter. The town of Maquon and surrounding Knox County were stunned. Rick had been a respected figure, someone whose name carried weight in every small town corner. Marcy? A neighbor. Someone who had smiled at kids on street corners and attended community garage sales. Now she was branded a murderer. Local media fed off the shock. Headlines screamed, "Betrayal next door." Forums erupted with fear and disbelief. People wondered, how did they miss the signs? How did a poisoning avoid detection? How did a body remain hidden in plain sight? When killers live among us, doing nothing obvious, how do we spot these whispering threats? In June 2025, the trial began. Prosecutors laid out their case like a crime board. They walked jurors through retail receipts, surveillance clips, toxicology reports, and the godmother's tearful testimony. The evidence was relentless and surgical. Marcy's defense described a woman unraveling under stress. She claimed she didn't intend his death, that Rick had grown ill, that she cared for him, and that the poisoning was accidental. But hours of recorded testimony cut through the defense's narrative. Recordings of Marcy forcing pills or the godmother's 911 call, screaming about hidden packages, sly, calculated, hidden in cat litter. Witnesses described Marcy's changing behavior, her emotional distance, her obsession with Rick's well-being, but only as a facade. There were weekend poker nights with Rick and neighbors who noted his declining health over months. The prosecution concluded she drugged him until his heart gave out and then sealed him away. Share your thoughts. If love becomes the tool of death, is forgiveness possible, or is justice the only path? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click notifications button for more gripping stories. After days of deliberation, the jury returned. Guilty on first-degree murder, attempted murder, aggravated battery, and concealment of a body. Marcy's sentence, decades in prison, with the possibility of parole wiped out by her deliberate actions. Community reaction was varied. Some called for leniency, arguing mental illness. Others demanded the maximum, insisting no mercy for premeditated murder. Rick's family stayed silent in court, but later released a statement. "We trust the justice system, but will never stop missing him." In Maquon, people grew quieter. Neighbors who once waved paused in thought. The funeral home began offering grief counseling. Churches lit candles every 1st of October, Rick's disappearance anniversary. When justice is served, does healing follow, or does a town remain wounded? Maquon would never be the same. Rick's killing sparked policy reviews on elder care at home, tenant screening protocols, and poison detection in elderly patients. Nonprofits held workshops warning of unseen abuse within households. The local sheriff's department launched Chief's Watch, a campaign encouraging neighbors to check on one another. Marcy's case also reminded communities, predators don't always lurk behind masks. Sometimes they hug your neighbor, smile at your kids, and whisper concern to your sick friend. They conceal their cruelty behind caregiving and pity. The real legacy, a call to stay watchful, without paranoia, to check receipts alongside doors, to listen to instincts before tragedy strikes, to keep eyes open, ears alert, and families safe. How will you act when someone who cares slips into your life? Will you notice before it's too late? Rick Young devoted his life to protecting others, but in his final days, he was left unprotected, silenced by someone he trusted. His story is not just a crime scene frozen in time. It's a warning about the dangers we don't see, about the secrets kept behind familiar doors, about the monsters we invite into our lives, unknowingly. And it's a call for justice, for Rick, and for every forgotten victim buried in silence. Like this video if you believe every victim deserves to be heard, even from beyond the grave. Comment your thoughts. Should life imprisonment be automatic in cases involving concealed homicide? Subscribe and click the notification bell for more true crime stories where justice, truth, and empathy remain at the heart of every case.